A federal judge called him a James Bond villain. He taught Iran how to build bombs. He shipped guns to warlords. He ran a private army of hitmen and ordered at least 7 all from behind a laptop, eating McDonald's in an empty penthouse. And before all of it, he was just a shy, overweight kid from Africa who liked to code. This is Paul Roux. Let's get into it. There's a man sitting alone in an empty penthouse in Manila. No art on the walls, no designer furniture. Just a laptop, a stack of shoeboxes stuffed with more cash than most people will ever see in 10 lifetimes, and a Domino's box going cold on the counter. The Filipino underworld doesn't know his real name. They just call him the Fat Man.
This guy's out of the box. He's really a unique guy.
Tonight, for the first time, the true story of the big boss.
His name is Paul Calder Roux. And the story of how a shy, overweight computer nerd from Southern Africa became one of the most dangerous criminal masterminds on the planet, running drugs, guns, and an army of hired killers from behind a screen, is one of the most insane stories you've probably never heard. Roux was born on Christmas Eve, 1972, in Bulawayo, Rhodesia, what's now Zimbabwe. His mother, a young unmarried white woman, gave him up almost immediately. He was adopted by a mining family who later fled to South Africa when the country collapsed into civil war. The kid grew up with money, but something was always off. He was brilliant, off the charts smart, but he couldn't connect with people. He buried himself in computers, taught himself to code, and by 16 he dropped out of school entirely.
When I think about Paul Roux, I think about a brilliant, arrogant, self-important, self-sure, very odd.
And he wasn't just some basement tinkerer. By his early 20s, Roux had moved to England, then Australia, and he created something called E4M, encryption for the masses, a free open-source disk encryption tool released in 1998 with what's called plausible deniability features. It was software designed to make your files invisible to the government. His manifesto railed against agencies like Echelon, mass surveillance programs. The code was legit. E4M eventually became the foundation for TrueCrypt, one of the most widely used encryption programs in history, a favorite tool for everyone from journalists to terrorists. But writing code for free wasn't putting enough paper in Roux's pocket. He bounced between gigs, got fired from one encryption firm for running side hustles on company time, and after a failed run at online gambling, he spotted the real play, a hustle so massive it would change his life and wreck thousands of others. In 2004, Roux set up shop in the Philippines and launched RX Limited, a network of rogue online pharmacies that sold prescription painkillers, Viagra, and tranquilizers to American customers without real prescriptions. Doctors rubber-stamped orders based on online questionnaires. FedEx shipped the product. Call centers in Manila and Israel, employing over 1,000 people at its peak, worked around the clock pushing pills.
He probably made $300 million in sales in 4 years. For a startup, that is phenomenal.
The operation pulled in $300 million in just 4 years. And this was just the warm-up. The whole thing ran like a Silicon Valley startup, except the product was fueling the American opioid epidemic and the CEO was a recluse who never left his penthouse.
Roux tactically chose everything. There's nothing Paul did not tactically choose. It's almost...
He chose Manila for a reason. The infrastructure was there, the labor was cheap, and more importantly, he knew he could buy off law enforcement and government officials. He stacked officials, cops, even members of the judiciary on his payroll. The state didn't just look the other way, it actively protected him. His cash was laundered through gold bars, swapped weekly in Hong Kong by Israeli ex-Special Forces soldiers, and stashed in safe houses across the city. It's said he had over $100 million in shoeboxes lining the walls of his Manila apartment. But here's the thing about men like Roux. The money was never enough, the game was never big enough, and what came next made the pill mills look like a lemonade stand. By 2007, Roux was sitting on a mountain of dirty cash and a perfectly insulated criminal infrastructure. Most people would have coasted. Roux, he wanted more. He started branching out into the kind of operations that get entire nations sanctioned. Methamphetamine sourced from North Korea and China, cocaine from South America, shipped on yachts, planes, and even submarines. One yacht called the Jarive wrecked in 2012 carrying 200 kilos of cocaine. But drugs were just one piece. Roux started moving guns. We're talking AK-47s to Somali militias, violating UN arms embargoes. He shipped weapons to Philippine rebel groups. One of those shipments got intercepted on a boat called the Captain Ufuk in 2008, loaded with crates of combat rifles.
Colombian drug lord. He aspired to be like the Jeff Bezos of the arms and the underworld.
He aspired to be the Jeff Bezos of the arms underworld. He even dreamed up what investigators called Amazon for Arms, a fortified compound on the Somali coast where he planned to stockpile weapons from Eastern Europe, China, and North Korea, selling them to whoever had the cash. He hired a private militia of over 200 men to guard it. And then the Iranians came knocking. Between 2008 and 2010, Roux sent emissaries to Tehran to negotiate arms deals. Iran offered him rockets, surface-to-air missiles, even tanks. In return, they wanted components for weapons systems, things under heavy international sanctions.
Here's our catalog. He was very excited about the catalog, just very excited.
The Iranians were offering Roux semi- and fully automatic small arms.
Roux didn't just sell them hardware, he taught them how to make it. He showed the Iranians how to construct cheap but deadly IEDs using chemicals derived from everyday substances like coffee sweetener. Iran paid him $5 million in gold bars for the formula, IEDs that would later be used by Iranian proxies against American troops in Iraq. To protect this empire, Roux needed muscle. He recruited a crew of ex-military mercenaries, former US and Israeli soldiers. He found hanging around the bars of Manila's red light district. His first enforcer was a British former soldier named Dave Smith, who managed the day-to-day wet work. After Smith, he brought in Joseph Rambo Hunter, a former US Army sniper, a stone-cold killer who ran Roux's hit squad out of a safe house that operated like a frat house for psychopaths. And the bodies started piling up. Roux admitted to ordering or participating in at least 7 murders. Bruce Jones, the captain of the Captain Ufuk, got gunned down after he threatened to name names. A customs broker, a logistics manager who wanted out, all put in the dirt. When Roux found out Dave Smith had been skimming $5 million in gold from the Iran deal, he lured him to a countryside property and had him dig his own grave.
Marius shoots at him, and then Roux grabs a gun, and he fires into the corpse.
A South African hitman named Marius pulled the trigger, and then Roux grabbed the gun and fired into the corpse himself. That wasn't about business anymore. That was personal.
It was the God complex almost, right? And I think he realized it could solve a lot of problems.
It was the God complex. And once he realized killing could solve his problems, there was no going back. Then came Catherine Lee, a 43-year-old Filipino real estate agent. She'd helped Roux buy beach properties. When he suspected, wrongly, that she'd been skimming, he had Hunter send 2 American mercenaries to pick her up. They drove her down a road, turned around, and shot her twice beneath the eyes. Signature shots. Her body was dumped on a pile of garbage.
The murders that followed, all are what started garnering attention. If you're a drug dealer, nobody really cares.
But once you start dropping bodies, people start paying attention, and the wrong people were now looking at Paul Roux. By 2011, Roux was running hot. He'd fled to Rio de Janeiro with a girlfriend and child, trying to dodge extradition. His pharmacy empire was crumbling under US crackdowns. His paranoia was off the charts, ordering hits on his own people over suspicions with zero basis in reality. And that paranoia cracked the whole thing open. A European ex-soldier codenamed Jack, his golden boy, the man who'd built the Somali compound, got word Roux had put a contract on his life. Jack left a voicemail on a CIA hotline and ran. 18 months later, that message hit the desk of DEA Special Agent Tommy Sindrick.
And I dialed the number. Guy answers the phone. He says, hello.
One phone call. That was the beginning of the end.
And I said, how you doing? This is Tommy Sindrick. I work for the United States government. You sent some information years ago. Yes.
Jack flipped. He gave the DEA everything. Emails, encrypted communications, the whole playbook. And then he went back to work for Roux as a double agent.
But if you had somebody on the inside, that's where you had it. And that's where we had it. We had Jack. He didn't know we had Jack. That was all the difference.
The DEA had somebody on the inside, and Roux had no idea. That was all the difference. The DEA built an elaborate sting. Jack told LaRue he'd connected with a major Colombian trafficker who wanted to do business. Meth for cocaine, too sweet to pass up. But the catch? The Colombian would only meet face-to-face in Liberia. LaRue, blinded by greed, took the bait. On September 26, 2012, in a Monrovia hotel room, the trap snapped shut. LaRue had spent the meeting talking openly about drug routes, arms connections, even all while Jack recorded every word. When Liberian police burst through the door, LaRue went into passive resistance. At nearly 400 pounds, he was almost impossible to move.
And he says to them, he says, "My African brother, what can we do to work this out?" And they're like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "No, we're African brothers."
He tried bribing the cops, offered 300 grand, then $500,000. Nobody bit. He tried playing the brotherhood card, calling the African officers, "My African brothers." They weren't having it. They had to carry him, shackled, still resisting, down 3 flights of stairs and onto a plane headed for New York. But here's the thing about LaRue. Even in handcuffs, the man was calculating his next move. The DEA agents hadn't slept in 72 hours. They were done. LaRue, he was just getting started.
And then the game is on again. The first thing he says to us, "Well played, gentlemen. Well played."
The first thing he said to the agents on that plane was, "Well played, gentlemen. Well played." Then he asked them what they were really after. They told him he was the prize. He shook his head.
And we're like, "What's bigger than you?" He goes, "Nation states, gentlemen, nation states." And that's when he starts going into North Korea and Iran.
Nation states, gentlemen. Nation states. And just like that, LaRue played his final card. He offered to flip. He started naming names. North Korea, Iran, the weapons programs, the drug pipelines, every mercenary on his payroll. He cooperated so thoroughly that the DEA kept his arrest secret for months, running LaRue's entire criminal network from the 5th floor of a U.S. federal courthouse in Manhattan. His own mercenaries didn't know he was gone. One by one, they walked into stings he helped design, including Hunter, who was nabbed in Phuket, Thailand, and sentenced to life in prison. On June 12, 2020, LaRue was sentenced to 25 years, with credit for time served since his 2012 arrest. The judge called his crimes breathtaking, but acknowledged the mountain of intelligence he delivered.
We would have never known about E4M and TrueCrypt the way we do. Sometimes you have to make a deal with the devil.
Everything is sweet.
As one agent put it, sometimes you have to make a deal with the devil. A shy programmer who built encryption to protect people's privacy ended up running one of the most violent criminal empires of the 21st century. And the very technology he created to fight the government, that's what kept him invisible while he was doing it all. As of 2026, LaRue remains behind bars. But the question that haunts this story is simple. How many more are out there, sitting behind a laptop, building something no one can see?